Okay, so almost midnight greetings on June 4th, 2019. This is the Counter Racist Evolving Engineer Program. The acronym for the program is CREE, C-R-E-E, and that is my handle. And I'm doing this program a little bit early. Usually I do it on Saturdays, which would be June 8th, but I'm going to be cross country. Looking forward to it. I'm going to see family that I haven't seen in minimum of 8 or 9 years. Some of them I haven't seen in a couple of decades, and so yeah, we've got a big. It's not a reunion per se, but anyways, I'm going to be out of town. There's no way I'm going to be able to do a broadcast on this Saturday. So for those of you who enjoy what we do here, just to let you know that's why we're doing it. I'm doing it early. I didn't let Kofi know that I was going to be doing it today. I just told him I was going to try to do something this week. Okay, so and occasionally, now he and I have spoken about it, but it's kind of dicey. Occasionally, there will be topics that I just feel more comfortable. I always like having him there as backup tech, but occasionally there will be subjects that I just feel more comfortable it being not not having two genders talk about the subject matter. To whatever degree he agrees or doesn't agree, it just sometimes just feels more comfortable. So today I want to talk about free trade, because we haven't had free trade. I've alluded to it on an earlier program about free trade on the sexual market, and sex and the company and all of that goes along with that. It's a tangible, and it's like anything else. It's pretty much subject to all the same things that any other tangible would be in a market analysis. Okay, so whichever side has the advantage, the supplier or the buyer, they're going to have more leverage. And generally speaking, without regard to racial lines, women have more leverage than men, simply because women have less urgency to complete the sexual transaction. Yes, this is why I need Kofi, because I've already started. So let me take off this starting soon thing, because I have already started. Ready to go back to this. So women have the advantage, and not only just in terms of just the urgency of having sex, and securing a steady sexual supply, but men need women's company more than women need men's company. All the studies show that men live longer and they're happier when they're married, and that's not the case for women. At best, it's an even trade for us. Some studies show that we don't live as long. We're certainly not as happy. Okay? So when it comes to whether you're talking about a casual encounter, if you're talking about a more long-term arrangement, women are in the driver's seat. Now, we all know that, because I've even posted the statistics, that anonymous dating data shows that black women are the least preferred. But there are factors that go into that go beyond physical attractiveness. Everybody wants to put it on everybody. There are people who have a vested interest in saying that what it is that black women are just less physically attractive. Namely, the people who have benefited the most from that have been non-black women. And for most of the history in the United States, it has been white women, but now it's all the non-black women. They have a vested interest in promoting that we're not as attractive. And, they've convinced some men that that's the case, black men mostly. And then, of course, black men, unfortunately, have a vested interest, because by making it seem as if we don't have any other alternative besides them, they get to secure a for sure supply, right? While they go out meandering around, and it's been an uneven market, okay? Because black women have been, one, we've been convinced that nobody else wants us, but two, we prefer black men. now I'm going to just come out and say that, this thing, I will go along with the host on the, I don't know if the program still is in existence. It probably is, the context of white supremacy. If it isn't, it might as well be, because he's done so many programs that it'll be in syndication for a long, long time. Syndication with quotes around it. But this is a Welsing moment. So, because what I will say is, while I think that Dr. Welsing got the genetics part of it wrong, she did get the part about sexual attractiveness, just basic biological sexual attractiveness right. I think that the ideal sexual attractiveness for both males and females comes in the color black. I think that an hourglass shape and balanced features, good teeth, all of that, nice skin, you're more likely to find that in a black woman. And the same thing with men. Wide shoulders, a wide rib cage, wide chest, slim hips, strong legs, that type of thing. You're more likely to find that in the color black. So in terms of just evolutionarily and the most primitive basis of sexual attractiveness, black women and black men have the advantage. But of course, the law of laws is the law of compensation. So you have a system of anti-blackness, worldwide anti-blackness, which I define as the only form of racism, that has compensated for that. So white men have gotten a lot of power. They've gotten a lot of physical power. They have a lot of resources. They name, he who has the might makes the right. Okay, and he's had the white woman at his side for his backup. And he's needing her less and less. I've been seeing lots of forums where white men complain that white women are too demanding for what they have to offer. And if you really read what that says, you don't have to read too deeply into it. It means they demand too much work, too much stuff for what men generally want. Is just they want an attractive woman, and they want a woman who is welcoming to them emotionally and sexually. And apparently they don't think that they're getting, on balance, enough of the latter to warrant as much as white women demand. And you can even see that in online dating preferences, where white women are not even white men's preferred woman, and online dating stuff is a balance of who you find attractive and who you think you have the best chance of getting at. Okay, now, the thumbnail that I put up was to demonstrate just how out of whack the situation has become. Because 25% of new marriages, to the extent that black men are getting married, 25% of new marriages, the Pew Research Center says this. And this, I'm going to be on and off. Hopefully this won't be a long time. I'm not going to go. I have data. I'm just a data person. I'm going to show data. I'd like to be able to get on here like a lot of hosts and hostesses and just, riff off with my opinions. It's a lot easier to do that. But I guess it's not in my nature to just always just get on with an opinion without any data to back it up. Even if it's anecdotal. But if you'll see in the thumbnail a picture that I took in a place that I just happened to be. And yeah, I'll show it to you right now. I should put this back up. If we run into tech difficulties, if we do run into tech difficulties, just hold with me. I'll be back at it. I'll get things straight. And if you're listening to this on playback, which is the most likely scenario, you can just fast forward through it because it'll probably happen. Okay, so let me go to the thumbnail pic. I took this picture, and I'm satisfied that the faces are blurred enough. And this was I was there, so this was a couple. They were there together. She came into the doctor with him because he had an issue. And as you can see, neither one of them would be considered they wouldn't be considered the cat's meow. Okay, they both look to be in their mid to late 40s, so they were matched age-wise. She certainly doesn't have an hourglass figure, far from it. And he's got these spindly legs and the big old gut, and they match physically to me. She probably weighs more than he does. And this isn't anything unusual that I see in San Diego. I don't travel California widely that much, but I know San Diego is a metropolitan area. I know that much. Of the metropolises, I think San Diego comes in third in terms of the ratio of men to women. And if you're a woman, if you're talking about a metropolis, San Diego is probably the third best place to be according to this list, because there are more single men compared to women. But nationwide, I should probably go to that and go to my PDFs. Nationwide, there are more men than women in the, let me just take this off for a second, in the 18 to 35 age group. So let me go to that. That one. We'll talk about Sally Hemings in a minute. I told y'all it's difficult for me to not come on here with data to some extent. But this is a Pew Research study. I PDF stuff because I never know when stuff's going to get taken down. And so I just will slowly scroll so you can see. First thing you want to look at here is this very first column. And it shows the number of men for every 100 women. The number of men for every 100 women. Okay? So this one here is outrageous. If you live in the Clarksville, Tennessee, Kentucky area, you are, I don't know what those men are like there, and especially for black women. But my goodness, it's almost a 2 to 1 ratio. There are almost 2 men for every woman in that age group, 18 to 34. Or is it this is just single maybe? Let me just make sure I know what I'm looking at here. Because I know nationwide what it is. It's about 118 to 100. 118 men between the ages of 18 and 34 to women. Okay. Yeah, this is for young adults, mapping the marriage market for young adults. And it's not giving us an age. Yeah, it is. 25 to 34. Okay? 25 to 34. So this is 25 to 34, and we're looking at this first column here. So, yeah, this is a really, really great place to be if you're a woman. Okay? Then you see San Luis Obispo, which is not, it's kind of far behind, but still, you're looking at 154 men for every 100 women, because I know San Luis Obispo, that whole area, Paso Robles, Arroyo Grande, California, that is near Silicon Valley. And so it just goes on and on like that. And so you can just kind of look through all the areas, and there are very few cities in which there are more men in the 25 to 34 age group than women. And I know a lot of black men take a lot of comfort because what's in the back of their mind right now and what they've beaten into our heads, maybe I'm going a little bit too fast, but do you see that there's not a 100 to 100, right? There's 100 women. So far, I haven't seen anywhere nowhere on this first page where you'll see that the numbers are even. Not in that first column. Not in this first column. Let's go on to the second page. You'll see the same thing. There are more men than there are women. There are more men, third page, than there are women. There are more men than there are women. This just goes on and on like this. Okay, this is the first one where you hit where there's almost as many men as there's a few less men than women. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. For a minute, I thought it was California. I was like, why? That's where I come from. But more men than more women. There's another one. I think here's one where it's even. But nationwide, yeah, there's like 118 men between 18 and 35. 18 and 35, not just 25, for every 100 women. Well, you say, well, that's not the case amongst black people. Yeah, but to see that only goes to black males' advantage as long as black women either refuse to date non-black men, or non-black men refuse to date black women because they find it so unattractive, which is the reason that I posted the picture that I did as the thumbnail. Because you see, when you have that big of a skew, then what happens is that surplus of males in that age group, they have to change their standards. They have to take women that they find less attractive, or they have to spread their net further to find women that they find attractive, right? So they have to take more chances, whereas they may not have been willing to take the chance of social disapproval in being with a black woman before. They now are more willing to do that. So they have to spread their nets further in terms of age, and then that has a domino effect in all the age groups, because really, if a 40-year-old man would rather have a 28-year-old woman, or he'd rather have a 32-year-old woman or a 35-year-old woman, and many of them have been able to do that when the odds are in their favor. But when the odds get way out of their favor, then those older men who are taking those younger women can't get them anymore. So that means that they have to bump up their age range to find someone that they find compatible and attractive, and they have to spread their net wider in terms of social ranking. We're talking about racial social ranking. So up to now, black men have just been able to defame us, say all kinds of things about us that are not true. We've always been loyal because we preferred them. And so we didn't have the urgency, because we're women to begin with. So we didn't have the urgency to have. I mean, if a man wasn't treating us that well, we put up with a lot more than we should have. But we didn't have the urgency to go out and open up trade. But black men did. They did that a long time ago. And I'm not talking about just in the United States, and I'm not talking just about since we've been here in the United States. And there haven't been any tariffs. See, when you want to protect an industry, or you want to protect a tangible in a collective, let's just call it a country. Let's suppose, which is not true, that black people in the United States were a country within a country, right? And if we had a product, let's call this product a tangible of sexual mating and dating, and you wanted to protect that, you didn't want other people to be able to underbid you, then there would be some real social disapproval. There would be some real cost to crossing that line. So if black men had really incurred a great cost for doing that, and that would have had to been something that would have had to been collective wide, it would have stopped. But there's been no cost to them doing it. So they've been able to go with women who, they're getting a lesser product, in my opinion. However, these women haven't been demanding as much of them. They don't expect as much of them because the women are in control. They are connected to the corporation, so they have more control. So they don't really expect much from these men, because these men, they just think they're eye candy or what have you. Or on occasion, if these men happen to be really wealthy, then the white women go after that, and we've seen what the result of that is. We all know that the marriages that are least likely to last, the ones that are most likely to end in divorce, are black male with non-black women, principally white women. And the marriages that are most likely to last are the other way around, black women with non-black men, principally white men. And that's because women initiate most divorces, okay? And so generally what a woman does is she supplies attractiveness, warmth, and sexual supply. That's pretty much, unfortunately, what all men really want. And women, we'll go back to the second column of this thing in a second. Women, we want intimacy. We want somebody there for us, but we also want tangibles. We want some sort of financial security. Black women have been less like that than any other women. We've been more about, if I dig you, the person, I'll put up with the rest. If I think you're fine, if you really do it for me, we can work out the rest. We did that for a long time. but it wasn't reciprocated. Okay, we didn't get any rewards for that. We were always the come up woman, right? Now, I have said before, I don't think that it's in the best interest of the Black collective for all this IR dating and mating. I don't. I know overall it's not good, because when you have a white mate, that tamps down your ability to look at racism, because if you look at it more, you're more likely to challenge it. And if you're in an intimate situation with a white person, that's going to cause problems. It's just human nature. You don't want to put that at risk. So I don't think it is. However, as I have also said before, what can be good for the collective cannot be necessarily good for individuals. And then you can increase the number of those individuals. So the example that I gave to make that clear was the last time I talked about this, was that we all agree that we will stop at lights, red lights, and stop signs, because that cuts down the likelihood that all of us will end up in car accidents and intersections. It's just better for all of us. If we could be assured of the fact that we would never, ever get hit by a car if we went through an intersection without stopping, all of us would just fly through. But we have all agreed to abide by these rules of the road because it's best for the collective, right? And so that's what we thought the rules of the road were for interracial coupling. Except only Black women are abiding by that rule. And so now this is been going on for 30 or 40 years now. And so now you have all these young Black women who, let me finish my metaphor. So those were the rules of the road. However, if you have a baby in the back seat and there's no ambulance, you can't reach an ambulance, or you're out of reach of where an ambulance is, and you have a small child who is having some sort of acute attack from a bee sting, or got into an accident of some sort, and you want to get that small child or baby to medical care as soon as possible, you're really not caring about the stop signs. And this is the situation that too many Black women of all ages, but particularly young Black women who have any hopes of being mothers, have been put in. Sure, we would love to abide by the collective rules of the road, but too many Black women have been put in the situation of having to share, and thereby putting their sexual health at risk, their lives at risk, or just being alone, and just being for sure sexual supply, just being the booty call. And it just got so bad after a while that Black women just said, okay, we don't prefer non-Black men, but it's gotten so bad now to where many Black women are saying, yeah, I definitely prefer it, because I'm tired of the games. I'm tired of being treated like trash. Okay. And there's some argument to be made, an argument that I have made, that since the behavior of Black men has shown that they value the opinion of white men, not just white women, that they value the opinion of white men. They like for a white man to see that he's got his woman, a woman of stature, because he's related to the white man. She's related to the white man. Because Black men, through their behavior, have shown that that's what they need, that is what validates sexual beauty, that is worthy of being shown off and devoting oneself to and working hard for, and all of that, that's going to raise Black women's sexual stock, which will cause Black men, perhaps, to probably, I've been seeing it in younger ages, very young high school kids, to value Black women more and to court properly and not just use as a sexual toilet. That could be what happens. I don't know. All I know is that the way things are going, the way things are going, I guess, I don't know if Black men are going to continue to do what they're doing. I don't think that it's going to last that long, because we've seen the statistics that Black men are the least preferred of all men. The only women who preferred Black men were Black women. And yeah, you can say the same thing about Black women, except that if you check the anonymous dating data, you will find out that Black women were preferred sometimes up to 3 times as much as Black men, because women in general are more in demand sexually. okay? And dating and marriage very often is just a transaction. Sure, everybody wants company, but a lot of men, I mean, some people fall deeply and romantically in love, but most people just kind of fly out of that. And what marriage real is a transaction. He trades what he provides in terms of intimacy. He wants some of that, and in terms of financial security and some physical security for a steady supply of sex with the most sexually attractive woman that he can find, according to what he finds sexually attractive. And generally that's as close as he can get to a 0.7 waist to hip ratio, okay, and an attractive face of balance features. Now, I'm going to move on to this next PDF some of you may have seen. This is an old article, and it was, I wish I could, I have it somewhere, but there it is. New York Times, published May 15th, 1910. Yep. So what it was is this Professor Boas, he predicted race amalgamation. So I'm going to just summarize this article. He was widely esteemed, he was if we read through it, we'll find out he was at some Ivy League school. But he came to speak, and basically what he was advocating was the strategy that you can find in that movie, Rabbit Proof Fence, but over here. He's basically saying, well, we can just get rid of the problem because all we're going to do is we're just going to breed the Negro out. But see, look at the part that I circled. So let's just read it. Professor Boas predicts race amalgamation. He says it may be retarded by legislation, but it cannot be avoided, he tells Negroes. He means Negro elimination. This is in the New York Times. And then he says, the union of white fathers and black mothers will bring this about. I repeat, the union of white fathers and black mothers will bring this about. And then he says there's a danger in reverse conditions. And nowhere in the article will you find why he says there's a danger in reverse conditions. I just came to the conclusion that simply the danger is that men are more sexual, and therefore men are more territorial when it comes to the sexual landscape. They want all the women for themselves, or they at least want access to more women. They don't want they did not want the sexual competition of black men. And they were totally okay with black women. They've been finding black women sexually attractive for a long time. We know that. That's why they were down there in those slave quarters. Which reminds me that just recently, they found the hidden room that old Tom Jefferson kept Sally Hemings in. And they say it was hidden in plain sight, that they had looked so many times that they should have found it over all the years that they refurbished the place. I'm looking for where I thought that I had highlighted it. But perhaps this is not the copy of the one that I had highlighted. But they found the proof, and it's not highlighted. And the most implicating piece of evidence, that in fact he had these children with her. They did DNA tests, and the DNA test came up positive. So we know he definitely did that. And they found the room where he kept her right near him, near his bathroom. Okay. So this has always been the case. And she was a mulatta, but how do you think she got to be a mulatta? Because somebody else was down there with black women, So this Professor Boas saying, get with it, white men. Start getting busy with these black women. And to go to a library, or where was this? Race amalgamation was advocated as the solution for the Negro problem in the United States last night in the Berkeley Theater in West 44th Street by Professor Franz Boas of Columbia University. Yeah, and Professor Boas, who has the chair of anthropology at Columbia, spoke under the auspices of the National Negro Committee. So for him to come and write out and say something like that, I do not believe what he was advocating was the continuation of illicit sex. He's just saying as time goes by, it'll be more acceptable for white men to have sex with black women. And, there can be this legislation that prohibits it. But the white men are going to go ahead and continue to have sexual intercourse with black women. And eventually, it'll just become acceptable and they'll get married and it'll go the way that it went in Australia. This is what he was advocating. And it didn't here because black women did not go along with the program. And white men were always afraid that what would happen is black women would have black men's backs, and this is why they needed their women so much, because if you had black women in the household who on plantations, who were responsible for making the food and all of that kind of stuff, you needed somebody to oversee the black woman if in fact the black woman was going to use every opportunity to try to help out the black man out in the field or wherever he was. And that by and large was true, but it just has gotten so bad in the last 30 or 40 years that even white men know that they don't have anything to worry about, because they know that black men have treated black women so horribly that they can just walk right in the door now. And as you can see, they aren't requiring. I showed you an extreme example. Sure, I did, but I see all the time. What I see is a matching of age and looks. It's no longer a situation in which only the very best looking black women are able to secure a white man as a mate and not just as a one night stand or a boo thing or a booty call. That's no longer the case. It's not even true that it's only the petite black women who don't have a lot of curves, who don't have a high BMI but still a low waist to hip ratio. That's not even true. I see all kinds of combinations. And so that means, I'll just give you an example. These are kind of anecdotal, but I'm just telling you what I see. And from the numbers, it's what you would expect. Let me close this other one out so as not to distract you. Just for a second. This here is this white guy up here in the corner. His name is Nick Wright. He's under fire right now, and I think I know why. But he is an analyst for ESPN, and he makes big money. He's a big time analyst for ESPN, and he surprised me many years back. Cause when I used to be a big LeBron James fan, not because of his basketball prowess, but because I thought that I thought he represented something as a black man that was something that was as close to maybe Muhammad Ali as we had seen in 30 or 40 years. I've since revised my opinion. I can't say for sure. I don't know to what degree the lives of his children and his wife or his own life were threatened. I don't know, but I'm not the fan that I used to be. But when I was surprised because this guy Nick Wright, I never saw a white man be as militantly in support of LeBron James's greatness. He didn't gild the lily. He didn't shave off corners. He wasn't trying to make other white men happy. He just said the facts. And I just thought, I've not really even seen any black men with the courage to defend LeBron James. This is like 4 or 5 years ago, to the degree that this white guy Nick Wright did. And all I would ever see is Nick Wright. And then the strangest thing is the other day, it was one of the videos that appeared in my YouTube feed. So he was just on there, and he looked different. He looked like a little swarthy, but he really is just a white dude. And his hair looked like it had a little crimp to it. I went, what? No. So maybe this explains it. So then that's the first time I ever decided to actually go Googling this guy and find out about him. And then I went, oh my God. Well, now look at this, will you? So that's his wife. And if you ask me, she's unambiguously black. And she already had 2 children when they met. He adopted them. And then they had 1 child together. He's a 6-figure man way up there. And he probably makes close to $1 million a year. I don't know how much he makes a year, but I mean, he makes big money. And what I'm saying is I see it from here to here and everything in between. And in San Diego, I see more black women of all different types with non-black men than the other way around. And that's the way it's been historically all throughout the world, whether you're talking about the Arab world, whether you're talking about most of Latin America. The United States has always been a special case in which that wasn't the case. I think it's because of the form of slavery due to the British, where white men needed white women, because white men were just doing whatever they wanted with black women until they got enough white women over here in the colonies. Okay, and then it was the white women who put up a big stink and decided to push through all kinds of legislation against miscegenation and to make sure that the child of any white man would also be a slave. White women did that. And white men went along with it because they felt like they needed white women's backup. Something's going on with them because, they don't necessarily feel that way anymore. I just don't want everybody to think that, it's just the bottom shelf where this is happening. It's happening from top to bottom. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my PDFs to back up my point and make sure that I'm covering the things that I said that I want to cover. Let's go on to another one for a second. Go back to the map. And before we start taking a look at the other rows in that same study, I just want to make sure that I'm getting through the things that I said I wanted to get through. Okay, so I kind of wanted to start it by saying, there's a saying, I don't know if he said it or not, but that supposedly the Buddha said, if it's not true, don't say it. Well, it's true. If it's not helpful, don't say it. I think in this case, it's helpful because I'm ringing the alarm. And then it's an alarm for the black collective generally, because we already know what happened in Australia and what Professor Boas advocated, and it looked like it's headed in that direction. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to be disingenuous. I think it's helpful for black women. I don't think black women are supposed to just be these I guess the word mulata would, if you wanted to go to the strict sense of the word, in which you're just not supposed to have any kind of sexuality, no need for affection or anything like that. Just be this race soldier. All other women deserve protection and intimacy and the delicacies and the protection of men, except for us. And all we're supposed to do is just get out there and put our bodies in between the police and black men to keep black men from getting the baton over their head, or to try to stop a tank, and to be out on the pavement and to be working and taking care of the children while he's depressed and sits on the couch because he can't get a job, and then he doesn't marry her or give her any kind of assurances that he will be faithful so that she feels secure in being physically intimate with her. I think it's helpful for black women to know that no, you're not considered the least attractive. Yes, you can get intimacy. Yes, it would be better if you could get it with a black man, but I'm not going to be unrealistic here. I'm just not going to do it. So I say open up trade. You can't be a one-way. It can't be a one-way tariff. The only tariffs that have ever existed in the exchange in this entity, in this tangible of sexuality, of sexual trade and mating, the only tariff has always been placed on black women. There's always been that word bed wench or the equivalent of it. That's always been the one that you don't do it. Black women couldn't do it. There was always a tariff on us. There was always a cost. But there's never been a cost on the other side. So it's always been one-way trade. So our value has always gone down because they have a bigger supply. And we've never been able to balance that by doing the same thing. Well, now we can. We always could have. And where I wouldn't choose to do it because my tastes are, I have very particular tastes. And I can't imagine. I mean, I personally can't. See, now this is not me saying don't do it because it's horrible. It'll make you less effective in countering racism. Yes, it will make you less effective in countering racism. But you want to know what? You only have one life. Okay, now I'm just saying I can't see myself doing it. I just, I don't want it. I don't want to get my channel shut down because if I get into detail about what it is that I do not prefer in non-black men, particularly white men, I know what that's going to sound like. I know that the attention is going to come to. I've already had somebody try to claim copyright infringement, which was ridiculous. And I've had some other things happen very recently that were very, very scary. These people are not playing, and they're not playing with me. And a couple of people know what happened. Yeah, they can ruin your life. Like, not just your YouTube channel. They can just not shut you down. They can shut down your life. And they know I know. And they know that I know better than to say what it is. But I got off on something. So, no, I'm not looking to make their ire, get their fire for, clobbering me even higher. So I'm not going to go into detail as to why I personally don't prefer them. But you will not find me condemning any black woman, for doing it. Now, does a black woman have to go out and do the same thing that black men have done? Go and talk about how terrible black men are? If you're going to do what you're going to do, just do it. You don't have to go and talk about how obese, or how whatever the equivalent is that you would call a man. The way that these black men have been talking about us, that they prefer non-black women because black women are so obese. And that's like, I've said for like 10 years that isn't true, and yet people continue to say these things. And even women who I admire, I'm not going to name them, but I like their YouTube channels, but they keep telling black women, lose the weight so you can open up the market. Well, I think I've just shown you a picture. You don't need to lose the weight. I mean, you should do it. You should, if it makes you feel better about yourself and if it makes you healthier, because there's a level for everything that can make you unhealthy. But if it makes you feel better about yourself and if it makes you healthier, sure. But look, black women are not the most obese. We're not the fattest people on women in the United States. We just aren't. And you see plenty of obese and fat white Mexican people, and even Asian women are fatter than their BMI suggests. Okay, because that's just an estimate. It doesn't actually show the amount of fat tissue. BMI way overestimates the amount of fat on the body of black women. Black women are no fatter than anybody else. The fattest women are Hispanic women. Okay, not black women and white women are equally fat. And fat white women have husbands. They don't have any problem getting husbands, white ones or certainly not black ones. Okay, so this idea that we have to be Miss Perfect, we have to get our schooling together, we have to keep a perfect house, we have to have a perfect body, we got to get our bodies more supposedly to the liking of non-black men. Non-black men like curves, and they like them almost without regard to size, just like black men. It just hasn't been socially acceptable to admit that. But it is becoming, from what I can see in San Diego, just much more socially acceptable. And on those same sites where I would see white men complaining that white women they want too much for what they give, basically what they're saying is, I even saw in that same thread, this one white guy said, here's the thing, he says, see, thinness is a proxy for shapeliness when it comes to non-black women. Because non-black women, particularly, non-black women are much more likely to be straight up and down. So they have to really cinch things in to not be just a amorphous blob. But this white guy on this same website had said, the thing is that black women can gain weight. And this is true, right? This is not true of all black women, but this is what he said. He didn't use the word some. He said black women can gain weight And you know that they've gained weight, they've gotten bigger, but they still can look really shapely. And the white women were fighting because this wasn't all men, because there were women and men on the site. And the white women were complaining that white men didn't want to date white women anymore. I kid you not. And this was like 8 or 9 years ago. And he said, yeah, black women can gain weight and they can still be really shapely. And I almost remember exactly to the word what he said about white women. He says, but when white women gain weight, it looks shocking. They just look like a big marshmallow. You know, they've got eyes. They can see. So no, you don't have to be perfect. So going back, now let's go back, and we already know that there are more young men than there are young women, 25 to 34, and we know that it has a domino effect on each age group and every level of attractiveness in terms of absolute number, okay? But then, you know, earlier in the report, it says 78% of women really require, you know, prefer, but almost require that a man have a steady job. So when you go from just the number of men to those who have a steady job, the numbers go down substantially. So even in the Clarksville, Tennessee, Kentucky area, it goes down from 188 men per 100 women to 145. Still, women are, you know, in the cat's eye seat, bird's eye, cat's eye. Anyway, in the preferred position, you see the numbers going down. You still see more men than women, even when the men are employed. More men than women, more men than women, more men than women, more men than women. Now it's getting smaller and smaller. That's even. And now it starts to dip just a little bit below. But it's still pretty close, still in the 90s. And so you say, and you still want to go back to the fact that, yeah, but that's not true for black women. Yeah, but you're forgetting that only holds if non-black men are unwilling to date and marry black women, or black women are unwilling to date and marry non-black men. And we're already seeing that is no longer the case. Okay? And so then the other thing is that you see, what's interesting is that the numbers go down substantially. And this is all races. So this is telling you that young people in this economy are having a really hard time. Particularly, even young men are having a harder time than young women because they're graduating high school and college at lower rates. White men are graduating high school and college at lower rates. And the most common living arrangement for young people, I think up to the age of 32 or 33, the most common living arrangement for these young millennials is to still be living with a parent. This is all races. See, but the difference between young black men and young non-black men, and you know, you can find your own research on this. Like I'm not, this isn't one of those things where I'm gonna provide a piece of research for everything that I say. Even though I'm giving you some, because that's just who I am. But the difference is, and you can find this for yourself, is that non-black men have their family's wealth, what they call in vivo transfers. They don't have to wait till their parents die. Their parents transfer the monies while they're still alive. They have those monies to fall back on, to live off of. So that means that if you happen to be one of these black women who a non-black man finds attractive, he has spread his net out to find something that is acceptable to him in attractiveness, and he's decided to, to look at black women as well as older women. And you happen to be this black woman, and yeah, you don't have to be childless either. I think Nick Wright demonstrated that. Right? He demonstrated it. So on the one pic, she demonstrated that you don't have to be, a size 2. You don't even have to be like normal in weight. And then on the other one, it demonstrated that you don't have to be childless, and you don't have to even It's okay if you have black children, and you could still, you know. Um, and remind me, you guys, like I'm talking to you as if I have you in the room, because I got ready to say, and remind me to tell you about an experience I had when I was in England. Um, but yeah, the thing is, if you happen to be one of these black women who's with one of these white men who's underemployed, you're still going to be living his lifestyle. You're still going to be getting his parents' money. And eventually he's going to get on his feet, because that's how the system is set up. It'll just take him longer, but he's got a sponsorship underneath him, which is his parents' wealth, right? Even if he happens to be unemployed, the numbers go down. But even when they're employed, look how many more there are in so many areas. And so that is the direction that we're headed. White men have wanted for the longest time to get rid of black men as sexual competition. That has been the main thing that has been holding them back between them and black women. Because there are so many, you go, don't ask me how I know these things. I'm a grown person. Doesn't mean that I frequent the places. Doesn't mean it's my way of life. But of course, I am aware, that in the adult entertainment stores, where people buy their toys and so on, there are always dildos and phallic symbols that are black. Black. And in pornography, there's always, not always, there are scenes in which white men enjoy watching their white woman get satisfied by a black man. And they'll say, oh, she wants that black. And we all know that men are always checking the sizes of their phallus of all races. That's like, they're so concerned with that. So if a white man thinks that you have brushed up against, a black man's member, he's intimidated by that. He is. And it took a lot. It took a lot for black men to beat black women down so badly that even white men can see that black women don't have any expectations from black men anymore. They know that the door is wide open. We didn't do it. We did not do that to y'all. So maybe as you see that you're losing your backup supply, maybe as you see that you're not getting the top shelf black women anymore, you're not getting the 9s, you're not getting the 8s, you're not getting the 7s. Hell, you're probably not even getting the 5s because you don't, we were okay. We were trying to work with you. We were trying to say, okay, baby, but can you do something else? Can you fix the car? Can you keep the car in running condition? Can you make sure that all the shopping is done? Can you make sure, because you work really hard if you're a custodian, can you do that around the house? Can you do that? Can you take, but no, we couldn't even expect we couldn't even expect you to be faithful, and then to be faithful, if we're going to be unfaithful, do it with a level of discretion. I have not personally experienced any of this. Okay, I don't even know what it would be like for me to have to experience it. Me, maybe it's TMI. For me, it's been, I haven't had that many serious relationships, but for me, it's always been, listen, I can't take your BS anymore. Just, I tried my hardest. I worked with you as long as I could. This isn't working, yeah. And so I was always the one who would call an end to it. But then, if he came back around, I'm a romantic, and part of me has a hard time just letting go of stuff, And so then I'd be like, okay, all right, well, we could try it on a, probationary basis. Let's see how this goes. I'll put you, I never use the word probation, but then if I find out that during that period of time, after I've already said, kicked him to the curb and he came back, and then, but it was supposed to be probationary. And of course, I assumed during this probationary period that we were going to be monogamous. And then I find out, oh, you're not. Oh, well, okay. I was only giving you a chance to begin with. Okay. But not when we were together. I never really had any reason to doubt when we were officially married that he was being monogamous. But I know lots of black women, especially the younger you get, the worse it is. There's just no expectation. There's just all this stuff in pop culture that is like glorifying being the side chick, ridiculous. I mean, that's just bare minimum. And just if you can't even do that, you're already having a hard time bringing in money. We tried to understand that. We really did. But then you started dogging us out and telling us white women were winning, and you didn't care whether or not the non-black women had butt implants. She had a woody, and non-black women aren't fat like black women. Oh, it's time for me to change my graphic here. Or should I go here? Well, I don't know which one says what. So I don't know how many times I probably brought this one up, but I actually did highlight this one. So there's BMI, which is it's a calculation that's supposed to tell how fat you are by comparing how much you weigh to how tall you are. But that's only a really rough estimate, and they now know that it is inaccurate, that it underestimates it for white women and underestimates it for Hispanic women, and it way overestimates it for black women. Now there's a real way to do it, and it is called, looking for it. It's an imaging thing. Hang on, I'll find it. Body fat, percentage body fat. And they actually get the percentage body fat not by estimating it. They actually, it's a DXA machine. Sometimes they call it a DEXA. And what it does is it actually images the entire body. So they can actually calculate the amount of every kind of tissue in the body. So they can calculate the amount of bone in your body, the percentage of bone in your body, the percentage of muscle in your body, and of course they can do it with fat. Okay, now that's an actual measure, as opposed to BMI, body mass index, which is it's supposed to be a proxy or an estimate of it, and it's a poor approximation for everybody because it underestimates it, like I said, in Hispanic women, in white women, and in Asian women. It overestimates it in black women. So the actual obesity rate has to be changed, even though you can see all these studies that say black women are so fat and black men want to say nobody else is fat. You should be able to see with your own eyeballs how many fat white women there are. Like, America is just full of fat people, okay? Black women aren't any fat. You should be able to see that with your own eyes. But, of course, the science got behind all this defamation of black women. And, but white men, the thing about men, it's just part of being males, like having all that testosterone. They have a very high sex drive. You know how high that sex drive is? It's so high that they are going to cross racial boundaries, and they are going to cross the boundaries of what's supposed to be socially acceptable in terms of a body type, even though they do have their evolutionary ideal, of shapeliness without regard to size. But you know how much of a sex drive men have compared to women because of the high level of testosterone? So we know how high it is because we know when they get segregated by sex, on a ship somewhere or in prison, we know what they do. They put other men on all fours just for that orifice, okay? Women don't have a need to do that. We need intimacy, but we don't need that. We can go longer now. When we do need it, that's not to say women don't have a sex drive, but let me tell you, when women's sex drives are the highest in two conditions. The 3 days of ovulation, it probably matches what men's are on the regular. The rest of it, we have sex because we enjoy the intimacy of it, unless you happen to be one of those women where your vaginal opening happens to be, I mean, this is a very explicit show, right? Where your vaginal opening happens to be 1 inch or less closer to your clitoris. Sexual intercourse is usually not the route that one would go for orgasm for a woman. But we do it for intimacy. We do it because it cements the relationship. Men are getting much more out of it most of the time, except those 3 days of ovulation. Ovulation makes your sex drive go out of control. At that point, you know that you need whatever those hormones are that's coming out of that man's skin and everything else. You need that probing. Okay, so it's high then because your body is screaming, because out of evolution, make babies, have more people, make the species go. 3 days, we have a sex drive that's as high as men's normal sex drive. Okay, those 3 days. Or perimenopause. When you're on that run up to the factory shutting down, your body knows it. Your body's like, last call. We shut down. We're shutting down at 2 a.m. Or whenever, however many years perimenopause can last. I don't know, whatever, 3 to 10 years. During that period of time, there can be like a 3 to 5 year period where you feel like you're ovulating all the freaking time. That's why they talk about women in their 40s, their sex drive being so high. Okay? So only under those conditions do women have sex drives that are, in terms of for intercourse, as high as men's are on the regular. And because of that, in any transaction, the person who has the greatest need for the transaction to proceed all the way through to completion has the least amount of power. So women generally, we have more power. We have more power because we have less urgency for the sexual act. We have less urgency for company. You ever notice that when a man gets divorced or breaks up with a longtime girlfriend, look how much faster a man rebounds. It's and you can take it at any race, and at any time where women, there may be more men than women, but men are looking for replacement as soon as they can. It's very difficult for most men to be alone, especially once they've been with a woman. They just can't be alone. Women can be alone. We're okay. We have our, women friends. We have our interests. And a big part of society, especially for Black women, is just to make us feel like we just have to be validated by, we just have to be with a man. You know what I mean? And when we do that, we lose our power. You can wait it out till you get what you need, sis. You can do that. Oh, back on the obesity thing. If you were looking at this while I was talking. So actual obesity rate, when we say actual, we're talking about when the actual amount of fat was measured by the imaging and not by the approximation of the BMI, which is very poor. The actual obesity rates are comparable. White women are at 58.7. 58.7 of them are obese. And, hopefully you understand numbers. Black women at 60.4. Statistically, that's a dead heat. That's a difference of about 0.7%, not even 1%. White, now as you can see, Hispanic women are significantly, statistically, more obese than either Black or white. They're at almost 10% more of them are fatter. And so, if you certainly can't say that Black women are fatter than white women because we're the same, but you better not say we're fatter than Hispanic women. So that's just a bunch of hook'em. And even when we have fat, I could show you another one, but I sometimes just get tired of finding stuff. So maybe you're just going to have to take my word for it. This one, because it says that Black women are healthier at a heavier weight than white women, of course, because we have more muscles and more bones. But the other part of it is that, sure, there are a lot of Black women that are like that picture that's in the thumbnail, who have a lot of weight, a lot of fat around their midsection. Yeah, there are. But generally speaking, as a collective, Black women tend to have more fat around the good parts that are actually protective of heart health. Our fat tends to be, we tend to be bottom heavy. We tend to have more fat on our butts, more fat on our thighs, more fat on our hips. And that's protective of heart health. So not only is it protective of heart health, it tends to look different. That's why that guy was saying that Black women can get heavier but still be shapely. because yes, she's gaining some weight around her midsection, but she's gaining it proportionately, generally. More black women do. I'm not saying all, but more do. I think that, have I said everything I wanted to say about? Yeah, so all this talk about how undesirable we are, that's all just a ruse to, it's an abusive relationship, and I would say that non-black men and black men are in on it, for different reasons. Black men are in on it because they want to keep us as their backup supply, of sex. And white men are in on it because, quite frankly, it makes them, it caters to their fragile male ego as they try to compare themselves to black men. It's sour grapes, so I don't want her anyway. Yes, they do, because when they look at their internet porn searches, they're looking for women that are shaped like us, like by far, more than any other type of woman. So both groups of men have a vested interest in making us, meaning black women, feel like we're less desirable than we are. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you the way it is. This is what it is. And if you want to get personal with me, go ahead. I've experienced quite a bit of that. You want to, bring up certain things with me, I don't care. No, I don't. I don't care. If you say something inappropriate to me, and make it logical. But if you say something inappropriate to me, I don't have any commitment to just publishing everything. I'm not going to publish something that's like just wildly inaccurate and insulting for no reason that doesn't move the conversation forward. But if you want to question me about my background in a way that is related to this topic and it bears some logic to it, I'll engage you. I'll certainly engage you. And you know what? Take screenshots of whatever question that you posted, and if you get upset and you think that I was unprincipled and didn't approve your comment, then you'll have proof, and you can go spread that proof around. And since I know people can do that, if it's going to be at all reasonable, I will deal with it. But if you're not going to be reasonable, don't even expect it to get published. I don't have to do that. Think that was it. Oh, I need to correct something. So that's the end. So I did my housekeeping. So to let you know, I will not be back until I'll be back at the regular time on Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern on June 15th. That's when I will be back. But I do want to clean something up. But if you go to the video page of the one where it was where Amara La Negra was being rated along with Laz Alonso and Zoe Saldana, we had said that Amara La Negra was provisionally non-black because she came in at 180 and 195 is passing. But Tam I Am, you can go to the page and you can see it. She dropped a link where it showed Amara when she was a little girl. And apparently, Amara's been wearing contact lenses since she was in late childhood, because this one picture where you can look at the link, she was probably about 8 or 9, and she had very dark eyes, like black-brown. So that means that those are contact lenses, and because of that, you add 30 points to her score, and she's a black woman, which is what it felt like for me. It felt like she should have come out as black. So just want to let people know that. But again, it's not our fault. If you've been covering stuff up for a long time and we get it wrong because we're basing our ratings on the only images that you've provided or you've provided to the public, that's just what it is. So we would advise people to stop doing that, or at least take a few pics where we get to see what you look like before you had your surgery, before you did your contouring, before you put on your contact lenses, before you got your Dominican quality hair relaxer. Otherwise, we don't know. It's not our fault if you are deceiving us. I understand why you had to do it. I understand the system of anti-blackness, but we're in a different space now, so you need to adjust. Okay, life is all about adaptations. You want to be regarded as black, it's a phenotype. I don't care what anybody else says. That's the only meaningful definition of race is phenotype. People treat you by how you look, not by what your DNA ancestry says, not by the music you listen to, not how you grew up, not who your mama is, none of that stuff. When you're out in the world, nobody knows any of that stuff. They are basing how they treat you on their overall impression, how you strike them as a composite. What is the composite impression you make? Do you look black or do you not? And that all we can do is go by what you look like. So if you've been a master of or mistress of disguise, good on you. Except when it comes time for us to either compensate for what we need on our own, which is like what I think we're going to end up as doing, and you can't prove to us that you're black, you're just out. Or, maybe these people, maybe I'm a bitter woman who can't see the forest for the trees, and you want to compare me to the naysayers before Martin Luther King and say, or the naysayers during slavery who said we'd never be free. Well, I don't think slavery was like it was at any point, because I'm saying nothing significant is going to come out of these reparation requests. So there will be pretenses, but just like there were pretenses of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. But look at where the gap has gotten wider. They're really good at shell games. Okay, so no, I don't think so. But I do think it's going to become important as to who we regard as black and who we do not regard as black as we compensate our own selves. Because that's code. You ask for what is needed. You accept what is granted. You examine what was given to you from what you asked for to see what the difference is. And if there's any difference, you have to figure out a way to compensate for the difference. But we're at the point where we're beginning to compensate for the difference. And we have to know, are you one of us or not? We have to know if you're the type that this is going to be, no matter how nice you play, you could end up like Steve Harvey. So it's important to know who's black and who's not, regardless of whether or not we get reparations from non-black people or if we make our own reparations. Reparations meaning repair. Okay. That was a really long wind up. I will see you folks June 15th. Please stay safe and stay as content as possible. I did want you to see this in the meantime. I wanted to say this to young women. I said, I'm being like a Baptist preacher. This is a slideshow of things you can do besides having sex or trying to compromise and get a man who doesn't make you feel like the most beautiful woman in the world, whose charms just don't make his pupils dilate, where he wants to walk 5 miles to see you, where he has something to offer you. You can do a whole lot of other things. There's a whole lot of investment for men to convince women that sex is so wonderful outside of those 3 days of ovulation. Like you're really, really missing something. You're really, really missing listening to all his problems, doing all the emotional labor, in the relationship, and making sure that you look your best all the time. And then, of course, getting on top of that mattress, geez, that's just the most fabulous experience in the world outside of those 3 days. No, it's not. It is not. That's what puts you in the position of power. That's why you have the leverage, because it's not other than those 3 days, and you can figure out something else to do in those 3 days. You don't need a world of hurt. You don't need to mess up your whole life and have a baby that you cannot support on your own. If you decide to do that, that's on you. I support you if you can do it. But if you are not financially and emotionally able to single parent, don't get yourself in that kind of situation. And in the meantime, those other 27 days out of the month, rather than being all sad that you don't have a man friend, that you don't have a boyfriend, take up a hobby, learn to do something constructive. That's going to make you a more interesting person for a guy that you're going to want later on anyway. Learn how to paint. These are all examples of things you can do. The list is endless. Be a great cycler, You'll find it fun. It'll keep you fit. Go swimming with dolphins. I love dolphins. Dolphins are almost my favorite people. Um, Learn how to do impressionistic, what do you call it? Texturized painting on the wall. Learn how to code. You can do that online for free at the Khan Academy. There are endless things that you can do with your time rather than pining away because you've had it hammered in your head that you must be connected to a man. That's all because they need you. You don't need them. Okay? I'm not saying they aren't pleasant. I like men. Men are one of the great joys of life. But so are dolphins. Um, it needs to be put in its correct place. And when you do that, you'll have more power. Okay. Now I'm really done. Like I said, stay safe. Talk to you on the 15th.